Let me tell you something. Not from a textbook, not from a lecture hall, but from the front lines of the human soul. Have you ever stood before a person who crushed your spirit and saw nothing in their eyes? Not guilt, not surprise, not even a flicker of recognition. Just that vacant stillness. Like your anguish was background noise, like the wreckage they left behind never even happened. That kind of silence. It's not just cold. It's a blow to the spirit. A spiritual collision that jars your sense of right, your grip on what's human. And you wonder, don't you? How could someone walk away like that? How could the narcissist leave this trail of brokenness and sleep like a baby? Let me be plain. It's not because they don't understand what they've done. It's because they've built their very identity around never having to face it. That silence isn't an accident. It's architecture. The narcissist didn't lose empathy along the way. They locked it away like it was a threat, because to feel is to risk. And to them, vulnerability is a battlefield they refuse to step onto. They've built their lives not on truth, but on illusion. On mirrors that only reflect their image back to them, and shadows that dance away from accountability. So if you're sitting there, still hoping, still waiting for that apology, that genuine moment of connection, hear me now. You're asking for fruit from a tree rooted in poisoned ground, and it won't bear anything but more bitterness. The narcissist remembers everything. Oh yes, they do. They just won't feel it. Not really. Because if they opened the door to guilt or sorrow, they'd have to dismantle the whole fortress, and they've spent years, maybe a lifetime, laying those bricks. Pain doesn't move them, it threatens them. Your tears don't open their heart. They trigger their alarms. That's why they laugh after betrayal, why they glow while you grieve. That isn't peace you're seeing. It's escape. Emotional detachment is their sanctuary. Their mask is polished because their heart is walled off. Somewhere along the way, they decided it was safer to perform than to be real, and once that mask fused with their skin, it became the only face they knew how to wear. Empathy, to them, is a prop. Used when it serves, discarded when it doesn't. They might echo your pain when it wins them affection, but the moment your emotion dares to challenge their throne, they turn to stone. Not because they're blind, but because they've trained themselves not to be touched. You could fall apart in front of them, right there in the ashes, and they wouldn't flinch. Not because they don't see the fire, but because it's not their home burning. And when you rise, when you dare to say, I deserve more, when you set boundaries instead of begging, they don't meet you with grace. They recoil, like royalty insulted by honesty. Your truth becomes their insult. Your needs, too loud. Your boundaries, too sharp. They've built an empire where they are owed everything, and answer to no one. This isn't indifference, it's self-preservation, sculpted into strategy. The narcissist's detachment is armor, layered over years of fear, shame, and wounds they refuse to face. They've exiled guilt. They've banished reflection. They've declared war on anything that makes them human. And you? You're left replaying the script, searching for the moment it all went wrong, begging your soul for closure from someone who can't even define the word. That heaviness you carry, that ache in your chest, it's your heart slamming against a wall that doesn't echo back. Don't mistake their calm for strength. It's not strength. It's emptiness. It's the absence of connection. It's what happens when someone trades authenticity for applause. When they choose image over intimacy. But if you're reading this, if you're still feeling, still weeping, still wondering, you're alive. And that matters more than you know. You still carry your humanity, the very thing the narcissist abandoned long ago just to survive the mirror. And when you bring your truth to them, what do they offer back? Not understanding, not presence. They give you fireworks. You speak with tenderness, and suddenly you're the enemy. You offer your truth, and they throw it back like it's poison. Why? Because the narcissist hears your honesty not as a bridge, but as a battle cry. They don't listen to love. They listen to control. If they can't bend your words, then they'll bend you. They'll turn your vulnerability into theater, your questions into crimes, your tenderness into ammunition. Because to the narcissist, an empathy is a locked door, and your pain, it's just another scene in their play. And when you lay your heart bare, they don't come close. They look down, like you've sinned by simply feeling too deeply. But the cruelest part, it didn't start this way. In the beginning, it felt like divine alignment, didn't it? Like something holy cracked open the sky and poured down into your world. The narcissist stepped in like a revelation, speaking your language, echoing your laughter, matching your light. You saw someone who felt like home, but it wasn't home. It was a stage, A mirror house built not to embrace, but to ensnare. And once you stopped feeding the performance with your awe, the warmth vanished like morning mist. You were left asking the question that haunts so many: was any of it real? The answer: both yes and heartbreakingly no. Because what the narcissist offered wasn't love. It was a transaction. They gave what looked like affection, but only because it suited the role. You weren't in partnership. You were caught in their gravity. The moment your soul asked to be seen instead of used, their affection grew cold. Because for the narcissist, connection was never sacred. It was a contract. And contracts, in their world, are one-sided. They didn't forget how they hurt you. They simply never felt it the way you did. You bled, they blinked. You shattered, they shifted the spotlight. The trimmer that broke your heart never even made a ripple in theirs. And it doesn't stop with silence. No, they go further. The narcissist rewrites the whole story. This isn't clumsy lying. It's not stumbling to save face. It's strategic. It's almost ritualistic. They remaster reality. They recast the scene. They reshape the truth so cleanly that even they begin to believe it. In their new gospel, they are never the storm, only the victim of bad weather. Misunderstood, provoked, innocent. And when you show up with the receipts, memories etched in your bones, words that burned like fire it, they twist. They erase. And if you dare to push back to say, no, that's not how it happened, they don't soften. They dig in. They get colder, loader, meaner. Because in their universe, being wrong is not an option. Being wrong is death to the image. And that's their altar. So they gaslight. They distort. You're too sensitive. You're imagining things. You've always been dramatic. They don't just lie to you. They steal your clarity. And suddenly, it's not just your trust in them that's broken. It's your trust in yourself. That's not just manipulation. That's soul-level theft. And this isn't just a one-time trick. The narcissist runs this script with everyone. Friends, partners, family. The story shifts, the scenery changes. But somehow, they always end up the martyr. The one done wrong. The misunderstood hero walking away from the wreckage with clean hands. Because the lie isn't just for you. It's for the world. And most dangerously, it's for them. The more people who swallow their version, the more untouchable they feel. They build their kingdom on charm, on performance, on smoke thick enough to choke the truth. And where does that leave you? Holding a truth no one wants to hear, carrying the H of a story rewritten without your voice. Branded the bitter one, the unstable one, the enemy of peace. And if you keep seeking justice, suddenly you are the danger. You the betrayer. You the villain in their carefully spun tale. That's how they keep control. Not through fists, but through fables. Through storylines designed to blind. Through shame deflection so fierce it scorches the soul. Because here's what you've got to know. Shame to the narcissist isn't a teacher, like it is for most of us. It's not a wake-up call. It's a threat. It's fire. It's the unraveling of the image. And they won't sit in that. Not for a second. They run. They blame. Anything but reflect. Anything but feel. They can't afford to admit failure. Not even once. Because failure cracks the mirror. And behind that mirror, there's nothing they want to see. So when they wound you, deep, sharp, intentional, and you look to them for change, for remorse, for a sign they've awakened to what they've done, what you find is absence. Or worse, inversion. You become the problem, the difficult one, the aggressor. And that, right there, is how the narcissist keeps going, not by growing but by revising. And if you're still holding on, hoping for that moment of reckoning, that glimmer of self-awareness, friend, hear me clearly, you're waiting for a sunrise in a room with no windows. Not because your pain isn't holy, but because the narcissist can't sit in the same room with it. Their soul is on the run, and they don't even realize it. One of their most disturbing tactics, a projection. And I'm not talking about misunderstanding or a little miscommunication. I mean soul-twisting, blame-flipping illusion, casting projection. When the narcissist feels the heat of shame rising, when truth starts pressing on the cracks of their armor, they don't melt. They hurl. They take that shame, wrap it in your name, and toss it like a stone. If they lie, suddenly you're untrustworthy. If they feel small, suddenly you think you're better than them. You hold up a mirror, and they smash it, then tell everyone you cut them with the glass. And it's so fast. So precise. You don't even see it coming. You walk in holding truth like a candle, and you walk out buried in smoke. Acumed? Spinning. Though wondering how the conversation shifted from their betrayal to your character. You came for healing. Now you're defending your integrity. And that's how they win. By making you forget why you came in the first place. That right there. That's not a conversation. That's a battleground dressed up in Sunday clothes. See, when projection stops working, when blaming you just isn't buying enough peace of mind, the narcissist upgrades. Denial becomes their fortress. And I'm not talking about missing a detail or forgetting a date. I'm talking about concrete denial, cold, clean, surgical. You lay out your pain, word by word, heart wide open, and what do you get in return? A shrug. A change of subject so sharp it feels like whiplash. But don't be fooled, they heard you. Every syllable, they just can't let it in. Because behind that front door is a monster they've kept locked in the basement their whole life. Shame. And if they let even one feeling leak through, the whole house might come crashing down. So instead, they deadbolt the door. And you're left out there. Knocking, pleading, waiting, for someone who acts like they don't live there anymore. That's why real remorse is so rare. Because true apology, it doesn't come from the mouth. It comes from the self-whole, rooted, courageous self. And the narcissist doesn't have that. What they have is a projection, image, a carefully assembled costume made to pass for a person. If they do say sorry, look closely. It's not for healing. It's not for truth. It's to patch the mask. To keep the show running. Because that mask isn't optional. It's survival. The narcissist's identity is stitched from the finest illusion. Charm stitched with ego. Posture disguised as confidence. Counterfeit humility laced with self-interest. And heaven help anyone who points out a loose thread. Even gentle words, truth whispered in love, can feel like betrayal to a person whose world is held together with denial. You bring a mirror, and they bring a flamethrower. That's why the smallest critique turns into an explosion. Not because your words are cruel, but because your truth is lethal to the image. And when their image feels threatened, they go silent or they go loud. Either way, they're gone. That's not power. That's fear dressed as strength. And that fear, it keeps them from growing, keeps them circling the same emotional mountain again and again. There's no soil deep enough to grow anything real because they refuse to stay still long enough to plant roots. Accountability to a narcissist is like poison. It tastes like death. Because to admit wrong means they aren't perfect, and imperfection in their world equals rejection, so they run from it, attack it. They'll label you as the enemy just for bringing it up. And in the smoke of all this denial they built something even more dangerous, normalcy. Oh, it looks polished. The brunches, the selfies, the good deeds, the jokes at the party. All curated to perfection, while the wreckage they caused is hidden behind closed doors. That's not kindness. That's manipulation. It's not about living well. It's about looking untouchable. If they can keep the spotlight on their smile, then they think they've buried the mess for good. And when you look like the only one who's hurting, the world starts wondering if the problem is you. Friends don't see the scars. Family doesn't hear the echo. Even your therapist might fall for the act. And you're left standing there, holding the truth like a burning coal in your hands. Trying to convince people it's fire while everyone else swears they feel nothing. That's not an accident. That's the plan. Because if the narcissist can steal the narrative, they don't just hide the pain. They erase it. They delete you from your own story and replace your truth with their performance. And if enough people clap, they feel invincible. Not because they are right, but because they buried the evidence. Gaslighting doesn't just make you doubt what's real. It disconnects you from your own soul. It chips away at your voice until you start whispering your truth like it's a crime. That's not miscommunication. That's spiritual assault. But here's what I want you to hear. And I mean really you were never made to live in that fog. You were built for clarity. You were meant to stand in the light, even if it trembles, even if it breaks, because truth might be costly, but lies cost everything, especially the kind that erase your very being. The pain you feel is real. The confusion, the disorientation, it's all evidence that you are alive, that you still feel, that you still hope. That means you haven't traded your soul for survival. And the narcissist, they haven't stopped, they repeat. Over and over. Damage without pause. That pain without reflection. That's the chilling part. It's not just what they did, it's that they keep doing it. Like it's on autopilot. Because if they can outrun the truth, they believe they can avoid becoming accountable. And if nothing happened, then nothing needs healing. Right? That's the logic they live by. And so they skip the soul work, the confession, the repair, the courage to say, yeah, I was wrong. They skip it all and smile while walking away from the wreckage like they weren't holding the match. That's not grace. That's the gospel of pretense. Because the machinery behind a narcissist's world runs on one thing: illusion. a shining face, a hollow heart. Let me tell you something most folks never see coming. The narcissist doesn't just wear the mask. They breathe through it. That smile you see, that perfect posture, the curated charm, the well-timed kindness. It's not vanity, it's survival. It's scaffolding for a self too brittle to bear the weight of truth. And the more damage they cause, the tighter they cling to the image that says everything's just fine. Because admitting they hurt you, that's not just uncomfortable, it's catastrophic. It would mean they're not the person they've painted on their canvas. And that shatters the whole illusion. So when they wound you, they don't just ignore it. They erase it. Smile through it. Because your pain doesn't just break the piece. It threatens to pull back the curtain. Your broken heart is a mirror, and they cannot risk seeing what it reflects. You see, their identity wasn't carved in honesty. It was stitched together with applause, praise, status, and a carefully managed image. They're either the one who's always right, or the one who's been unfairly wronged. There's no room in their world for accountability. So when your pain contradicts their narrative, they don't adjust. They attack. You tell them, "You hurt me," and they label you unstable. You open your heart, and they scoff. Not because your truth is weak, but because it's strong, too strong. Strong enough to threaten their castle of delusion. And when truth feels like ruin, they do what they've always done. Rewrite, redirect, protect the mask. This isn't ego. This is spiritual self-defense, twisted into something toxic. It's not just, "Don't hurt me." It's, "Don't reveal me." So they flip the script. Call you needy, sensitive, they dramatic, whatever they need to say to keep you from looking too closely, because if you really looked, you might see the cracks, and those cracks terrify them. They can't afford to feel, so they perform. And when your emotions ask for repair, they edit the scene instead. Your pain becomes background noise. They an inconvenience to the storyline they're trying to sell. But here's the part that turns the stomach. When you really hurt, when you reach out for mercy, for connection, they don't respond with care. They punish it. They pull away. They say you're too much. They withhold the very thing they know you're longing for. Because your honesty is not seen as a cry for closeness. It's treated like a threat to their God, their image. That image says, "I am good, I am right, I am untouchable." And if they let your truth in, that story burns down. So they don't just ignore it. They call it fiction. They say it didn't happen that way. That you're imagining things. Not because they can't remember, but because remembering would be the beginning of the end for the lie they live in. So they double down. Smile bigger. Laugh louder. Don it to a cause. Compliment a stranger. It's all part of the show, a polished act meant to distract from the wreckage behind the curtain. Meanwhile, there you are, standing in truth, bleeding in silence, watching the person who hurt you act like nothing happened. And the plot. That's not peace. That's warfare disguised as normalcy. Because to the narcissist, your suffering only matters if it threatens the script. It's not sacred. It's not held with reverence. It's something to manage, manipulate, dismiss. Whatever keeps their ego comfortable and their reputation cleaned. And if you're not clapping for the act, if you're not feeding the illusion, you're either forgotten or cast as the villain. Because to the narcissist, you were never a partner, you were part of the set, a prop, a mirror, a supplier of praise. The moment your truth challenges the scene, they cut you out like bad footage, and they believe their edit. Not because it's real, but because the truth is too heavy for the identity they've built. They're loud, yes. They look bold, but underneath it all, fragility, rage, fear. A self so paper, then it can't hold a whisper of shame. So when you come bringing truth, earnest felt, you're met with stone, or spin, or a silence that screams, "You will not touch this mask." And in the end, your pain is buried. Then not because it wasn't real, but because their survival depended on denying it. But hear me now, friend, their silence doesn't invalidate your voice. Their denial doesn't unwrite what you lived. Their performance doesn't rewrite your truth. You're not too much. You're not imagining things. You're not the problem. You're the witness. You saw what they refused to face. That, and no matter how bright the spotlight shines on their act, your soul still knows the truth. It felt what it felt. It remembers what happened. No mask, no matter how flawless, can steal that from you.